happens is that we become the judge of what we're worthy of and what we're not worthy. And there's only one person who can judge whether we're worthy or not. Jesus has already said that she's worthy of being with him. So she's already been made worthy. He's already dictated that, but she, or her mind, steps in, or if you want to call it the enemy steps in and plays that game with you and says, hey, who do you think you are? Don't you remember what you used to be? You think that you're worthy of being amongst one of the holiest persons who's ever going to walk the face of this earth? You think that you're worthy of that? Her mind automatically goes, maybe I'm not. And so she goes back to her previous identity. It's not that her faith isn't strong enough. It's not that she doesn't truly believe. It's just that we're always fighting and battling, not so much the devil, but our minds. We don't have control over our minds. We don't see our minds as a tool that we use to make sense of the world. And what happens is when we don't control our mind, when we are not dictating what we believe and what we think about, then the mind goes on sort of like autopilot, and then it hijacks your attention. Nothing that happens in your mind has life if you don't give it attention. If you ignore a thought, it won't grab you. It only feeds off of one thing. It feeds off of your attention. And once it has your attention, it's got you. It's got its talons right into you, and it could create practically any scenario. And if you give it your attention, you're also kind of sacrificing your belief, because you're giving it your belief. You're believing in that idea, and then fear comes in. And I've said multiple times, fear is inverted faith. It's having faith in what's evil versus having faith in what's good. And so I believe that that's why people backslide, or why we backslide, why we go back to old ways. And so the question now is, what do we do about that? How can we avoid backsliding? How can we avoid our mind from replaying the past? How can we avoid our minds to hijacking our present moment and replaying or reliving the past by giving us images of who we used to be, or in sound as well, where we hear a voice, our own voice sometimes, that says, you're not worthy of that kind of love. You're not worthy of that kind of life. You're not worthy of anything good in your life. So why don't you just go back to your old way of living and relapse into drugs, into alcohol, into sex, into lying, into violence, into so much. So how can we avoid all of that?